Good morning. Welcome to the Motor Life F1 podcast. As we kick off season 4, this is our 16th episode, and we are very privileged to have a special guest with us today, Jeremiah Wahome, a young rally driver who's preparing for the Safari Rally. And just thank you for taking your time out of your busy week to join us this week.
Yeah, thank you for having me and for the invite. Always happy and glad and ready to talk about motorsport. So yeah, looking forward.
Okay. This is the 4th season of the podcast. We're starting today. And you've been on my bucket list from 2022 when I started this. It was always interested to know there's a young Kenyan racer who's tackling open wheel racing in Europe and Asia. How did that start for you as a young boy?
Yeah, it started when I was really young, well, around 7, 8. Just family friends ended up go-karting at Splash or near the Carnival, where I think it used to be the only place then. And then there were some family friends who were already in go-karting. So kind of got introduced through them. My first years weren't like too inspirational, if I may say that. But then I just remember one moment watching Hamilton on the big screen, winning his first title with McLaren in 2008. And I think for me, that's now when it sparked. I just started thinking and imagining, oh, if he can do it, there's no Kenyan, or at that time I didn't know how much Africans were involved in the racing and Formula One space. So just without even knowing what the journey would look like, just like, why not try this? So just started, then now I started becoming more conscious about it. Looking for opportunities. So I'd go online and watch go-karting races from all over the world, in the UK, South Africa, Italy is very big on the go-karting. And then as I got older, kept progressing and then started now looking for ways to break into single-seaters. So it happened very interestingly. Just send an email, don't even know if I'm going to expect a reply. And it was actually very simple. You get a Teams reply and they're like, you can come in for a test session. We can just book you for a day, see how you do, try out the car. So I remember the first time, it was in Spain in 2014 with a team called Hill Speed. And I was supposed to do one day in a car called a Ginetta Junior. It's like a sports car, but very small, low powered, to help me prepare for the Formula 4 car. And then they sent an email. Well, it wasn't a bad email by any means. They were like, oh, sorry to inform you, the Ginetta is not available, so you have to drive the Formula 4 car for 2 days. And I was like, that's the best news ever. So it just started like that. Looking for opportunities. Privileged to come from a family that was able to support me, follow that dream and allow me to travel, take time off school, and just get me introduced into the sport. So anyway, we'll get more into that, but that's a brief of just how it started with the go-karting. Before I started doing cars, I did a few go-karting events outside of Kenya, because in Kenya, we don't have much of a variety of go-karting tracks, or we didn't then when I was doing my go-karting. So did a few events in South Africa and did a few events in the UK just to gauge where I was and how I compared with other of my age mates in the same category. The level, I will tell you, is very different from what you get out there compared to at home. But now these days, with variety of tracks and more people getting involved, the standard in Kenya is definitely rising.
Very unique in that.
The mic is moving.
Oh, right.
Slowly. Okay. Fine.
Okay.
It's still moving. It's fine.
Oh yeah, it's still moving.
Is it moving still?
Yeah, it's still going down.
It's still moving.
Yeah, this is eventually going to.
Or should he hold it? Or okay.
Is it? Okay, that seems to have stabilized. Okay. I didn't know how far you wanted me to go with that question.
No, okay.
Okay, you can check the second question. 5, 4, 3, 2.
That's very unique, because I think most of the people I meet, their inspiration was rally drivers who they watched in the Safari. Yeah. But you're straight into the Hamilton years.
Yeah.
And then, but even to make the leap that I'm a young guy go-karting at Splash. I'm inspired by Hamilton.
Yeah.
And then just sending emails at random. I mean, that's a big leap.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess then maybe, should I say young and innocent? I didn't have too many limitations in my mind. So it's just like, okay, what's the next step? Let's go. So, not even being aware of how expensive maybe it would be, or if we call them barriers to entry in motorsport. But even as you say about the rallying, I remember at some point doing some interviews when I was doing Formula 3 and being asked the same question. And I was like, I have no interest in rallying, no background in rallying, not even watching. I've never watched the Safari at home, to where I am now, obviously now going into my fourth year in rallying and really enjoying it. So I usually laugh at myself as to how that has gone round, full circle. But I didn't come from a racing background. So no one in my family was either into racing or Formula One or into rallying either. So there was no bias or anything to skew me in a particular direction. So I guess I had an opportunity to just start from no expectations, pick whichever. There was no bias to influence me in a particular direction. So that's how I now ended up at the Formula One direction. I did. And it's like this is staying, but this in itself, I don't know if now.
Or we can prop it against the.
Anchor it to something.
Push it back. Maybe push it back.
We wedge it.
Just wedge.
I don't know if.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try paying more attention.
Okay, Sanjay, do you have a question?
Single-seater racing from Spain. What happened after your Formula 4 test?
Yeah. So I did my Formula 4 test in 2014. That was in Spain with Hill Speed Racing. Then I still don't know to this day how this gentleman got my contact, but there's a guy called Peter Thompson, and he was the owner, or he was in charge of the Formula BMW Asia Cup Series in Malaysia. So he got in contact with me around April, now 2015, the following year. And he's like, hey, I've been following your journey, come across you, just wanted to send you our proposal and our invite to see you if you'd be interested in trying out our Formula BMW Championship. So basically how it runs is they have around 15 to 20 cars. Basically one team, their team was called Meritus GP. So it's one team with one team of engineers and mechanics. So it's not an inter-team battle. So they ensure that all drivers have the same equipment. And then they're basically training you at the same time. Then at the end of the training, you're competing. So it was just a way to fast track the path for drivers to go from go-karting to single-seaters, like be a soft entry in that sense. So not too much competition between teams. The budget wasn't crazy. So he sent that forward. I shared it with my dad. We liked the idea and managed to go to Malaysia. That was in Malaysia. They held it all at the Formula One circuit in Malaysia, Sepang. So I did that in June and I got the opportunity to do that. It was 6 races. They all went very crazy. Some were great. It was so physically demanding and Malaysia is hot. So by the end of the race, very drained. But it was very good exposure. And I think the competitor in me was like, okay, watching all of my videos, how can I improve? How can I get better? How can I improve on my gear shifts, the braking? Because the dynamic from go-karting to single-seaters is very different. The way you brake, there's no power steering. The car is heavy. You now have downforce. So did my best in trying to learn that, and then got the opportunity to now do the main championship, which started in August. So it was five races per event. So, and there was supposed to be 3 events, I think August, September, and October.
All in Malaysia.
All in Malaysia, yeah. So keeping it still at the one circuit, and then you give drivers a chance to really master one circuit before we start introducing too many variables. And that's now when, for me, I believe it really kicked off. I guess the homework paid, because I ended up finishing as the top rookie 3 out of 5 times.
Oh, well done.
Finished second twice on the overall podium and third once.
And is this the same track which F1 uses for?
Yeah, the exact same track. So it was very, very, I still have those pictures, inspirational for me to stand on the same podium that now the Formula One drivers, heroes of mine like Hamilton, stood on. Of course, there weren't now as many fans as when they were racing, but exact same track, got to watch their onboards, compare what they do to what I was doing. Of course, the cars are a bit different, but standing on that podium with the green AstroTurf and the pictures on the back, everything the way it is for Formula One, it was exactly the same. So that's now when the ball really got rolling. And I believe that's when now, from my parents' side, they actually started to realize, okay, this guy can actually go somewhere in this sport. Because then now we started taking moves to go and race in the UK. So then I moved to the UK. Well, not really moved. I went to boarding school in the UK for my A levels, my Form 5 and 6, so that I could race at the same time in the UK. So I believe that really only happened because of the success that I got in Malaysia. That then now kickstarted everything, and now they had the assurance that we could get something out of this.
Very reassuring and comforting that your family was this supportive and was able to fit into your schooling now.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the racing situation now in the UK?
Yeah. So in the UK, it pretty much happened the same way as what happened with the previous team, Hillspeed in Spain. Email, again. Emails, I guess, used to work then. Just sent an email to around, any of the teams. I probably sent to all. So this team called Chris Dittman Racing, they got back to me. They were like, oh, that's awesome. We like your journey. Come to the UK. I don't know if I'd already started school at that time. Come to the UK and you can have a test session, drive the car, and see how you like it. And we see whether we can negotiate a contract for the next season. So it was in November. I went, and I remember I had 2 days at this legendary track called Brands Hatch GP. So that was my first time driving the car. And then coincidentally, they were doing a refresh or an upgrade of the Formula 4 car. So it kind of happened that the upgrade was quite powerful, that the car was now almost 6 seconds a lap faster than a Formula 4 car. So technically jumping into Formula 3, because the Formula BMW is slightly slower than a traditional Formula 4 car. It didn't have the paddle shifts, and the horsepower was only around 160, but the Formula 4 was around 180 to 200, and Formula 3 was 230.
What's the weight of the car, and what top speeds do you do?
The weight of the car, I don't remember the exact figure, but it was like around 560, definitely
That's
less
heavy.
than 600.
Yeah.
So half a ton with 230 horsepower. So we would get to 100 kph in 4 seconds, literally. And the highest I remember hitting with slipstream, low wing in Spa was 162 miles per hour, which I think equates to around 260 something. But the funny thing is you don't feel it because you're so low to the ground. There's so much grip. The car is planted. Maybe only my head shaking in the cockpit side by side because it's an open cockpit. But I always say doing 260 in a Formula 3 car is way easier than doing 180 in a rally car. Because in a rally car, it's just a whole different... between the trees kind of feels like it adds 50 kilometers per hour on every side. So yeah, that's how I got into Formula 4, which then immediately transitioned to Formula 3. And we signed up for 1 year. With Chris Dittman Racing, we would have a pre-season testing plan. So around 10 days before the season started. Now, the crazy thing, which I got to learn later, was I had my 10 days and I was very happy with that. That was quite an achievement to be able to do that, get the funding for that and the time. But other guys were doing easily 40 days before the season started, or they'll be in the car 200 days a year. So competing against that was now quite an uphill task. But I wasn't too worried about that in the beginning. I was just enjoying my time, literally living the dream, because no other Kenyan had done it. So it's just taking the steps, step by step, seeing this thing come to life. Yeah.
Just amazing. You've raced at legendary tracks, Malaysia, Brands Hatch, Spa, and Silverstone. But then today we're in a more informed age, thanks to Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
We're now able to see the journey of young drivers and what they go through to get to this point.
Yeah.
You said you were young and naive at the time.
Yeah.
What contracts do you get in Formula 4? Is it for 10 days? Is it for...
Okay, I see.
And the guys who did 40 days, for example, do they pay a portion of that? And do you have to invest more time to get better?
So basically how it works, even from go-karting at a lower level, but now professionally, or should I say semi-professionally, from Formula 4 till Formula 2, is that you get teams, like how I mentioned, Heel Speed or Chris Dittman Racing. They buy the cars and they have them. So they keep them, maintain them, service them, everything. So then I don't have to then buy my own car, service it, look for my own mechanics, transport the car myself. So they offer all of that as a package. They call it arrive and drive. So my job as a driver is to arrive at the track, hopefully arrive prepared, do your own bit with your fitness, get your kit and everything. But once you arrive at the track, you find the car ready to drive. And at the end of the day, you don't have to worry about now fixing whatever you pay for it. I'll get into that. You don't have to worry about servicing the car or taking it back to the workshop. So I would just go back to school. Very luckily, I lived very close to where the team's base was, 20 minutes away. So they'd pick me up from school after I'm done with my class. We head out to the track and do the practice. So what now happens, it was an 8-round championship. So from around March till October, just avoiding the winter season. So we would then agree for the 8 rounds, this is how much I'm going to offer you a package for. And then depending on now, we think it's reasonable to do 20 days of practice before the season starts. If you're able to afford to do more, we can increase it to 40. So you can either have, 2 days a week driving, or you can do 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and then maybe Thursday, Friday, you've gone to another circuit. But a lot of the practice happens in the preseason, not during the season.
But what months are this?
So we're now doing this from February, March. So
Really
we'd have
cold.
Yeah, it's very cold. I remember one time driving at Silverstone, because it was very hard to get Silverstone during the year. It was only in the winter months where you'd find practice days. And it was 0 degrees, so we couldn't get tire temperature. My hands were freezing because it's an open cockpit, so your hands are getting hit by the wind. I remember at some point I would have to triple layer gloves, but then you now lose feeling on the steering wheel. But the other drivers were really used to it. Some guys could afford having tire blankets so that, they don't have to waste time warming the tire temps. But you'd also get days where you go and it snows or it's too wet and you can't drive. Now, unfortunately, that whole day is a waste because you've booked that track already. So we'd do that from Feb into March. And then typically the first round of the season will be around Easter season. So then that would be round 1 through to September.
Then we get to, was there an overlap between these early Formula races, young drivers who you met? What was that like?
Yes, definitely there was an overlap. So a very good example that I always love to give, I used to watch a lot of karting videos of, let me say it, this guy, because now we'll all know him, this guy called Lando Norris. So then he's a bit younger.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, you've heard of him. So he's a bit, maybe a year and a bit. So I would watch videos of him, but he was really small then and in a lower category. But there would always be this wonder kid, Lando. So watching go-karting, I'd always watch his videos and be like, this guy is really good. How can I adopt his driving style and learn from him? So when I signed up for now British Formula 4, which transitioned to Formula 3, he had just completed Formula 4 the previous year. So this was now his next step to do British Formula 3. So I remember seeing him on the confirmed entry list and I was like, whoa, how did this happen? Am I supposed to be in awe of him because I've been watching so many of his videos? Or am I supposed to be competing against him? Now, the way it happened, we technically really didn't compete against each other because he won every race he entered. He did half the season. And he won, that's not factually true. He won 80% of the races, let me put it that way. And I was coming 10th, 12th, 14th. So we didn't really race side by side, but we were in the championship at the same time. He went on to finish, I think, 4th. He was racing in Formula Renault Euro Cup at the same time, which he won. So for me, that was such a moment, I think, when it's actually becoming real. I'm like, this world is not out there. It's not so unrealistic to think that I can't have the same experiences as they do. So drivers like him, George Russell, I've attended a couple of test sessions when he was there, Guang Yu Zhou, a driver called Jake Hughes, Mick Schumacher, and Lance Stroll. But they were the kind of guys who had their whole motorhomes around and they would be driving 200 days a year. I don't think they were even, going to school at the same time. But there definitely have been those overlaps. For example, we'll get to this, but when I did Formula 3 in Asia in 2018, there was one round where Liam Lawson came and completely swept the field and won the race by, I think, 27 seconds plus. So it was quite cool seeing it's quite cool now seeing some of these faces and being like, oh, I raced against some of these guys. Jake Hughes, who I mentioned, he's doing Formula E with McLaren, Dan Ticktum. So just some of these names out there. I don't know if I've forgotten any, but it would really be quite an encouragement to be like, okay, it's not such a far-fetched world out there. Just keep on working and I'll be like one of these drivers one day.
Okay. So you did single-seater open wheel in the how did that progress? And then when did you make a decision now to transition upwards?
Yeah. So I did 2 years in British Formula 3. So after 2016, which was my rookie season, we renewed our contract. We were able to do more practice. And basically the general plan then was always to do your introduction year. And then the second year now is when you go for, much, but that I would already know all of the circuits, the tips and tricks, how to navigate my way around them. So then second year was no longer learning year, but now go and get the results. So that naturally did tend to happen, was in the top 10 a bit more. I had a few, I think 2 top 6 finishes, a 9th place finish at Silverstone. So there was that natural progression. And then now after 2017, I now stepped up. So basically you get what you have national Formula 3, which is what British Formula 3 was. Then the step up from that is regional, so European Formula 3. But the European racing scene gets very, very, very expensive very quickly. So then we now made the decision. There's a new Formula 3 championship coming up in Asia, regional. So F3 Asia Championship certified by the FIA. So then we made the decision, actually we can do this because I was also moving to university. We can do this at the same time as your uni. It's only it was a 5-round championship, but 3 of the rounds were during my holiday season. So there wouldn't be too much of a clash. So signed up with an Italian team called SVC Asia, Squadra Villorba Corsa. And then signed up for the inaugural championship. So again, back to Sepang, Malaysia, 3 years later. Is it 3? 2015 and 18, yeah. And then also now more Formula 1 circuits in Shanghai. Shanghai is a very, very, very cool circuit. I really like. Very technical, very complicated, hard to get it right, but very rewarding when you do. Then there was another track in China called Ningbo. Now, what most people don't know, China has like 10 Formula 1 tracks ready, just hoping for
10.
one day that they'd have a whole, I don't know if they're hoping to have a whole championship in there, but they have options.
Okay.
So Shanghai, Ningbo, Malaysia. Then we went back to Ningbo. So sorry, Malaysia, Shanghai, Malaysia, Ningbo, Shanghai, Ningbo, then back to Malaysia. So 5 rounds.
Okay. My sister lives in Shanghai, but she talks about the track is so far from where she is. So it's never entered her mind to go for this. She talks about the city as, I think, 3 airports.
It's huge.
Just massive.
I think it's almost like 50 minutes out of town.
Yes.
It is quite the distance. Ningbo is even much farther. I think almost like a 2-hour drive from the nearest airport. But they try and put them out there so that they can develop all of these ghost towns and build cities around them. So I remember I had to be in China for 3.5 weeks on my own, and I wasn't prepared because internet and everything is blocked. So those are some of the things now we went through for the love of racing. So stayed in China, tried to learn some Chinese, never worked. But yeah, that was my 2018.
What's your team like? Is one of your parents with you? Is it? Do you have a manager? Do you have a?
For that time, yes, I did have a manager. There was a company called DCM, Driver Club Management, but I think we only did Malaysia. So for the China rounds, I was on my own. And it's something I got used to, not because that there was nobody to come and support, but being in the UK and then my family being back home in Kenya, they couldn't fly for every round. But my sister was also studying in the UK at the same time. So whenever she had time to come and watch the races, she would pop by. But just learning how to be, I didn't mind it because just learning how to take care of myself, be prepared, train. I would always be in the gym in the morning. I had a whole training. Again, I signed up with the management team that also managed Lando Norris. We did 1 year with them. So getting to now know this is the level that drivers train at. This is how they handle their social media. This is how we work with sponsors. This is how we get you funding, all of that stuff. So that did help me now in 2018, where I had moments where I was on my own, but knowing how to deal with the team, speak with my engineer, because they were now Italian, so there's a bit of a culture difference, and the language barrier wasn't there, but just the communication styles are different compared to the British teams that I was racing with. So all of those learnings come and are part of the game, I guess.
Now we're edging towards COVID years. Had you already made a decision before then?
Switching to. So at that point now, after doing regional F3 in Asia, we're now trying to see budget-wise what would we be able to do, because trying to now continue progressing in Europe was getting out of hand. So tried out some sports cars, GT racing. So the F3 team had links with a sports car team that has AMG, Mercedes AMG GT4s. So we're trying to see the sports car route, will that work? Trying to align me with a manufacturer, because that's one of the quickest ways to now start getting paid for the racing. So if then I were trying to get Toyota, because then Toyota is quite big in Africa, did the test with the Mercedes at Spain again. That went really well. And then, as you said, now COVID came. And COVID coincided with a time when I had just finished my university degree. I was studying economics and finance at the University of Surrey. So did that, came home because of COVID. Now there was no racing. Everything is quiet.
You were able to come home before they closed the borders?
I came home 3 days before, and
Wow.
I remember I was really fearing to tell my dad that I wanted to come home, because he didn't like the idea of me missing school and skipping class. But somehow I just had the confidence to be like, I just want to come home. He's like, what about class? I'm like, don't worry, I'll go to class online or whatever. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. When do you want to come home? And I'm like, can I come home today? It was simpler then because airlines had removed the charges for changing tickets. So it was a free change. I packed my stuff, came home that same day, because there was nothing we were doing in school anymore. And then the border was closed 3 days later. So I was like, thank God I came back home then. Otherwise, I'd have been stranded in the UK.
Were there already signs that you could see that schools were shutting down? Or
we were already in our Easter holiday. So yes,
okay.
Yeah. So we're being told, okay, take this class online. I think I had planned to go to another city, but now transport was becoming an issue, stuff like that. So I said, if I'm just going to be in this apartment, and sorry, I said Easter holidays. We're just about to get into the Easter holidays, but a lot of Easter plans were being cancelled. So I could already see that Easter will probably just be indoors. Like, why spend it indoors if I can just go back home? But that was a really great decision. So then now the whole of 2020, there was no racing. But then now towards the end, now unknown to me, Rally was coming back after a 19-year hiatus, and the then FIA president, Jean Todt, was in the country, and they were launching the simulator place at Village Market called Rev with the then CS ambassador Amina Mohammed. So my aunt, who's been part of my racing journey, she's like, why aren't you going for this thing? Can we go? So we managed to get ourselves on the invite list. They were happy to host us, and we went and watched the launch. So since she knew the CS, she's like, come and let me introduce you to her. Maybe she can get you a meeting with the FIA president, see if you can get funding. So that happened, but in another way, we got invited for a dinner later. Actually got to meet Jean Todt, spoke about my journey. He was like, okay, why didn't I know about this story before? We should try and help you do something. So he gave me his contacts and the contacts for his son, Nicholas Todt, who runs a company called All Road Management that manages Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari Driver Academy mostly. So we got talking, but there weren't really many opportunities in the Formula side. So I didn't get the funding that I was looking for. But I guess 5 months later, in April the next year, there was a candidate event right before the Safari Rally to make sure Kenya is ready for the WRC. So in part of the agreement, they were trying to put together a junior team. So they said, we can't have the rally come back, but the entry list will only be of the older guys. We need a new crop of the young generation coming up into rallying. And the WRC promoter, that was their aim and their agenda. So I get a call one evening and they're asking if you're interested in rallying. I'm like, oh, I've never thought about it. Because I was expecting the call to be about Formula 3 and Formula 2. And they need an answer by tomorrow morning. And I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do or say. So I just remember praying about it, and it was just very evident. Do not say no. Take the opportunity. So I called back. I'm like, you know what? I'll do it. But I have to be able to practice or test the car. I've never been in a rally car, sat in a rally car. I'd just seen them from a distance and looked at it, but never been inside it. I'm like, if you get me practice, I have no problem at all. So of course it was a yeah, we'll do that. We'll get you practice. Long story short, that never happened. Never got an opportunity to practice. And the first time I drove a rally car was at the Safari Rally in this new Rally 3 at Shakedown. Yeah.
So was this now under the Rally Star program?
Exactly.
But you never had a chance to do any preparation.
Yeah.
It was just straight into...
Yeah, because the cars were these new cars called Ford. I mean, it's a Ford Fiesta, but a new category, that they were introducing called the Rally 3 category. So it's a four-wheel drive, around 230 horsepower. Again, did I say four-wheel or two-wheel? Four-wheel drive. So the car is a four-wheel drive. So it's to bridge the gap between the Rally 2s and then there was two-wheel drive Rally 4s. Anyway, complicated names, but two-wheel drive into four-wheel drive. So the cars were not in Kenya and they were only coming in several days before the rally. So that's why I wasn't able to practice in the car. So the
rally that was the Safaricom Kenya Airways and the whole...
Okay. Yeah. So the Rally Star program is established to nurture 3 young drivers. We got the cars from Europe, sponsorship from the WRC promoter themselves. And then now the government of Kenya put in some money. Safaricom came on board as our title sponsor, and Kenya Airways as well would help us with tickets because we later went on to do the Africa Rally Championship. And then 1 driver per year was going to Europe to do the European Junior Championship, JWRC, Junior WRC. So Keki was helping in that regard. So that's how the team was set up. And then the 3 drivers, myself, Hamza Anwar, and Makre Kimathi.
How did you do in your first Safari Rally 2021?
I think I did awesome. I ended up winning my category, which
Very
was
good. Congratulations.
Should I say not expected, but expected? Because I guess I'll always have high expectations. So I was not looking at it like I didn't have any experience. I just had some confidence that I'd be able to do well, and taking each day as it came. My co-driver Victor Okundi was very, very helpful because he used to be a rally driver as well, and he's a seasoned navigator. So it helped me with writing notes. I learned how to write notes from PlayStation. I would play and listen to the notes the co-driver was saying and be like, oh, that's how you guys do some notes. So it was like being thrown in straight into the deep end. Friday, finding my footing. Funny thing at Kasarani, I don't know if it was nerves or not knowing the exact procedure, but I forgot to put the car in competition mode. So I was driving around on literally half the power. And so anyway, I guess I attribute that to the nerves and everything. But as the event got on, I now started feeling at home. I'm like, okay, this isn't too difficult. And by Saturday, I remember fully now being in my groove. There was one stage where I missed a turn on the way to the stage and I ended up being late. So I got a time penalty. So I was so annoyed at myself and eager. So I got a time penalty, messed up my start procedure, started in second gear, stalled the car.
You can stall the rally car.
Yeah, you can, because you have to pull away. And it's manual when you're pulling away. So when you're switching gears, it's semi-automatic. I don't have to clutch. But when I'm starting and launching the car, I have to now do the balancing. So stalled, lost another 10 seconds. So I was now like, in F3, they used to tell me, why can't you get angry at yourself all the time? Because the angry Jeremiah, when he's driving, is half a second faster. So at that point in time, I was like, I have to recover time. And I ended up catching up with the car ahead of me. So for me, that stage like woke me up. I was like, oh, the limit is way higher. I can now push. It helped me like accelerate in my progression. So by the time I was getting to Sunday, I was now fully comfortable in the car and happy with my driving.
Okay. With the Ford Fiesta, what was it like in the Africa Rally Championship? Which countries have you been to? And what was that like for you?
So for 2021, I did Africa in 2022, but after Safari, we got the chance to go to Tanzania. So Tanzania went really well. I came 5th overall, and then we did Machakos. Now Machakos went well. Then we did Mombasa, and now I was getting nice and ambitious. Probably I had a wrong note or something didn't happen right and I rolled the car. Oh, no. So I ended up having my first roll 4 months or 3 months into my rallying career. But usually we say it's better it happens sooner rather than later so that you get it out of your system. Because that's now when you know, can you go back? Because some people have a roll and when you go back, you can tell it's a different driver. So it's like, okay, you've gotten that out of your system. Now we can continue on this career progression. So 2022, is now when we did Africa. Again, still being sponsored by Safaricom and KQ. They renewed the partnership. And we did Kenya as the first one. Then we now went to Uganda, Tanzania, Arusha. Then we did Rwanda, Kigali, and then Zambia. So I think those are 5. Yes, we did the 5 countries. Went really well. I remember by Tanzania, I started winning stages overall. So we were in the Rally 3, but there were also a couple of Rally 2 drivers. So Rally 2 is a step up, more power, more performance out of the car. So now starting to gain speed, confidence in the car. And now the good thing about the Africa Rally Championship is with each country you go to, the surfaces are very different. The surface in Rwanda is very different to what we get in Zambia. Zambia is very similar to Kenya in a way, but a bit more sandy. So you're getting experience and exposure at different surfaces, different environments against other drivers. And in each country you're going to, we're also racing against the locals. So they have the local experience, but they're look at these Kenyan guys in their new cars, thinking that they'll come and beat us. So there's a bit of that friendly rivalry, but we gained so much experience that year. Those 5 rounds and a few others in Kenya, but learning, literally learning and more learning. Learning comes with mistakes. I had an accident in Uganda, kind of entered a pond, but managed to get pulled out, but I couldn't continue the next day. And then in Zambia, I rolled on one stage. It was a slow roll, and we got back on our feet, on our wheels, but damaged the radiator. So I overheated and couldn't continue. So ended up missing on the Africa title. I was in a really heated battle with my teammate, Hamza Anwar. So he ended up winning that and got the opportunity to do the Junior WRC Championship in Europe the following year. But amongst us 3, we were 4 actually that time with our new teammate, Maxine.
Yes.
So we had a really awesome time, a lot of learning, and that's what the program was all about, offering the drivers progression, experience, and developing as rally drivers, a space that I never thought I would have been in 2 years prior or even 1 year prior. Yeah.
And this year you transitioned to now RC2 with a new team, Skoda.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what are you doing now? Do you have the car yet?
Yeah.
Are you ready for next week, the safari?
So 2023 is when now, actually, so we did Africa in 2022, 2023 came along, and I won the first race of the season. Now, unknown to me, an indigenous Kenyan driver had never won a KNRC national event for over 22 years. I need to get the exact number.
Which rally was this?
This was in Machakos, the first round of the championship. So it was very interesting because I had a really rocket start in the first stage and built a gap. But then now my car started overheating. But somehow I think other people also started having their issues and were able to manage the overheating well and ended up winning the event. So I think as a driver, that now gave me so much more. Now that's the expectation. You've won your first event. You've got to keep this up. So I was in second place in Voi before I hit a pole. And then Safari came along, finished second in my category. No. Sorry, I retired that Safari, the water crossing, and the engine died or choked rather. But then later in the season, I won again in Mombasa. So those were my highlights and everything was going on a high. And then in 2024, the program kind of, I don't say collapsed, but there was a shift in management and things were kind of just left unattended. Let me put it that way. So though there was some willingness to get the program back up and running, there was no time to get the cars ready. So I ended up missing out on a slot and I didn't compete in 2024. So that's now when this opportunity for 2025 started coming to life because my sister kept encouraging me. She's like, Jeremiah, you need to go and look for funding out of the country. You need to go and ask these WRC guys in Europe. Tell them you can go and have the meeting. Just disturb them. Ask. And I was thinking like, why would I think like that? That's like an unrealistic way of thinking about it because they're organizers. They're not sponsors. Why would they put money into my career? But just one day I messaged one of the guys on Twitter. Yeah. Because I didn't have his email, but I said, I remember seeing this guy on Twitter and he always posts. So I messaged him, he replied, and he's like, great, yeah, we'd love to have the discussion with you. Whenever you're ready to travel, we can meet at one of the rallies in Europe. So I tried to go to Finland, it didn't work. Tried to do Greece, it didn't work either. And then the next opportunity came in Germany at the Central European Rally in October. So told them now I'll be able. They helped me get my visa. But this guy that I spoke to wasn't around. So he said, you'll meet with my boss. I've already briefed him. Now the boss is called Simon Larkin. Anyway, he's really here for the safari events and helps with the promotion of the WRC. So I go and I have a meeting with them in Germany. I fly out to Germany. And even before we start talking and let's say me asking that I wanted some help funding, he's already like, okay, look, we have some funding for you. We can help you. We can support you. We want you to drive a Rally 2 for Safari. So I didn't even have to like pitch myself or suggest it.
That's
they already
good to
had
know.
been thinking
Good,
about
okay.
it. So that was really encouraging to see that they're actually genuinely interested in the progression and the career of the drivers. So we agreed on that. They said they'd help me look for a team. And that's how we ended up at Eurosol Racing with a new Skoda. I think it was released in 2022. So it's been in competition for just about 3 years now. So it's a very, very, very good car. I've never driven a Rally 2. So this is going to be my first time. And as I said, I've not driven a rally car since the end of 2023 because 2024, I didn't compete.
You don't take a friend Subaru and go to Machakos and...
It's very different though. The way
Okay.
the cars handle, not that it would be pointless. Any practice helps, but also getting access. It's very rare for someone in Kenya to give you their rally car. You know, you're basically signing your life away. If you break it, it's now yours. You buy it. So you have to be ready for that financial investment. But yeah, never been in a Skoda before or a Rally 2, though never driven, though I have had a passenger lap with Karan Patel. He was gracious enough to give me a run in his car. And the power is very different. That was the first thing I realized. I'm like, that's how you guys drive. That's how fast you go through the corners. So I'm expecting a lot of that. Never, as I said, never driven a Rally 2, Skoda, anything. But the car arrives this coming Friday. Today is Monday, the 10th. So Friday, the 14th will be my first time seeing the car. And I have a practice session on Sunday, 50 kilometers. So that's all I'll get in terms of practice before the event starts. But remembering how my 2021 went with the Rally 3s and never having driven a rally car and winning my category, I almost want to say I'm spoiled with expectation then, because if that went as well as it did, why not have the same expectation? So, but besides that, I really don't like putting so much pressure on myself to go out there and chase other people and I have to beat you. I already know what I expect of myself, and I know when I'm driving at a high level, and I know when I need to make improvements. So as long as I'm keeping along on that track and have those expectations of myself, then it is going to reflect into results. So I guess maybe that's me being shy of giving an exact result, but I mean, I really want to be challenging for the top positions in Rally 2 and hopefully even sneak into the top 10 overall standing. So
Okay, well,
that's what I'm hoping.
They have a good car. They have a good track record in Rally 2.
Yeah,
Skoda. I think they've won 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And while the whole world looks at Toyota dominating the Rally 1,
yeah,
Skoda is there, and I think every year they are edging up in the overall classification.
Yep.
I think last year they were 6th and 7th, actually ahead of several
Rally 1s, with Gus Greensmith and Oliver Solberg. So it'll be very good now directly benchmarking myself, one, with our local guys who've been in Rally 2 for a couple of years, and then also with the international guys, and also with my teammate, because I will have a teammate, Daniel Twist, and he's been doing Safari for, I think, 4 years now. He's come every year. This is his 5th. So I'll have a good data reference, a good comparison. And the team is also very professional as well. So they know what a good rally driver looks like, because a lot of drivers have gone through them. So it'll be good for me to know where I stand or sit and what I have to do to pull my socks up.
Before you get your car on Sunday, F1 will have kicked off. Your old friend Lando.
Yeah.
F1 starts this week in Australia.
Yep.
This is going to be Ferrari's year, as we discussed earlier. So what's your view about the first race, and how do you think the year will shape out for F1?
First race, I guess looking back from testing, you would want to say nobody can tell. Max has already gone out there saying he doesn't think Red Bull will be ready to challenge. I still think McLaren will have the advantage, right? I'm still kind of rooting. So I'm in an interesting place here. Super rooting for Lando, but also super rooting for Hamilton, because I'm a Hamilton fan from day one. And the Ferrari story, I guess, is do they say, not swan song, but like it's picture perfect, right? So I still think Lando will have the edge. not that I doubt him. I don't know how strong he is over the duration of the season. We saw how he was a bit shaky last year, but I mean, you have to have shaky moments so that you now know how much of your elbows you have to get out. And we started seeing that towards the end. So I think it's going to be a Lando win. Between Lewis and Ferrari and Charles, I think, honestly, not that I doubt Lewis, Charles may have the upper hand for the first half of the season because he knows the car, the team. But it'll be interesting to see how. I honestly think he'll be Lewis's greatest competition. I mean, strongest teammate that he's had. Nothing on the other drivers, but I rate Charles highly. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic. But I still have, if I had money, I still have my money on Lando.
So you predict Lando for the Australia win?
Yep.
And you predict Charles finish ahead of Hamilton?
Half the season.
Okay.
Half the season, yeah.
And then Safari Rally, Toyota, 4 years in a row, they've won it.
Yeah.
Do you see competition from Hyundai or from Ford?
Yeah.
Can Skoda actually come up, and what do you think that will happen?
Yeah, I think, yes, Toyota may still have an edge, but I honestly don't think they have an edge car-wise over Hyundai or Hyundai. But for some reason, it just tends to work out. So knowing Safari, and it started raining. I think it's rained now 3 days in a row or 2 days in a row. So if it starts raining more or consistently, then, I mean, I can win it, right? So I still think...
Let's pray for that. Yeah.
Toyota will have the edge. And same thing in Rally 2. Also, Toyota is now in Rally 2. So it's really between Toyota and Skoda. So we'll see how that translates into that. But yeah, I'm not against Hyundai, but I think Toyota will still have the edge, especially Kale. I do really enjoy watching Kale's driving, and he's not won it 2 times previously, twice, right? Yeah, and Seb twice. He's not won it twice previously by luck, so he would be the favorite. So I think he is more of the favorite than Toyota being the favorite. And it'll be good to see how Katsuta also goes, because he also tends to go well at Safari. So anyway, we hope that they get enraged in a battle and us Skoda guys can come through and take places in the top 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeremiah. Thank you so much. We've been chatting to Jeremiah Wahome. Look forward to seeing you race in the Safari Rally from 20th to 23rd March. Everyone look out for his green Skoda car number 29.
Green. Have you seen leakage?
I think from past years. Red. I don't think it'll change much. Yes.
Yeah.
But wish you the best in WRC2 and the Africa Rally Championship.
Yeah.
This is Jeremiah Wahome. Please follow him on all social media platforms at JW_Africa. Thank you so much. We've been having a nice chat this morning at the SemaBOX podcast incubator with Lawreen, our producer. Follow the Motor Life F1 podcast on all your platforms, and have a great 2025 season in all the series, F1, Safari Rally. Good luck, Jeremiah.
Thank you for having me. We should do another one once the event is done.
Okay. We'll review the F1 season in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
And have a nice day.
Awesome. Thank you.